Hi, I'm Jim Atkinson, Managing Partner for Avidian Wealth Solutions. Today, we're speaking with Jake Borbidge, the Chief Investment Officer here at Avidian. Jake, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Jake, you've been managing client portfolios for over 20 years. Can you tell me what's the difference between a large institution where you worked previously and a smaller firm like Avidian?
So what I've seen here at Avidian is fairly unique. I think what you typically have at a large firm is you've got a lot of investment in the investment team, you've got strong capabilities, but the investment team doesn't talk to the client and they don't talk to the financial advisor in between the client and the investment team. So there's something lost in translation between investors and the client. At a small shop like Avidian, typically what you'll see is the investment capability will be outsourced. And so there's no independent thought, and the investment team still is not in the same room with the financial advisor, with the financial planner. And so that creates a challenge too, because really you want your investors to understand what the goals and objectives are for the client, and you want them talking to that financial planner. If they're not having that conversation, those things cannot happen the way they do here at Avidian.
So let's talk about that. So Avidian bills itself as a boutique family office. And I assume that means that you've got multiple departments. You've got the advisor and the financial planning and the investment team. But when you're creating a portfolio and you're looking at the financial planning and the investment management, how do those actually come together?
So we tend to think about that as how do we understand our clients' goals and objectives? And that can be anything from their goals around the return of their portfolio or their risk. It can be their tax position. It can be how they've designed their estate plan. But really all that matters is that we get all that information unencumbered and just perfectly translated from the financial advisor and the financial planning team. If we don't have that info as an investor, we're kind of shooting in the dark. We're kind of guessing and trying to build something that we think makes sense for our clients, but really we just don't know for sure. So when we work with the financial planning team and we talk to them multiple times a day in person, sometimes clients in the room, sometimes just between the two Avidian employees, you're going to have that translation. You're going to have that knowledge sharing between those two departments.
When it comes to investment selection, Avidian is a fiduciary.
That's right.
And falls under certain rules that we have to follow. How is that different than other shops?
So I think the biggest difference is that Avidian's investment team, we're independent. And that means that all the people that work for me that are analyzing funds, that are looking at ETFs, looking at individual private market deals, we don't have a beneficial relationship with the providers of any of those securities, any of those funds, or any of those investment opportunities. So our evaluation of each of those opportunities is going to be solely to find something that's in the best interest of our clients, whether that's aligning with our goals and objectives or peeling back the layers in terms of finding more efficient ways to access capital markets, whether it's through lower fee products or better access through private markets. We're aligned with the clients of Avidian and not with the providers of investments.
So speaking of investments, let's dive down into that a little bit, the universe of investments. So the public markets, what everyone thinks of, the stock market, the Dow, the NASDAQ, that's less than 10% of the actual investing universe. So there's something like 90+%, which is private markets. So can you talk a little bit about Avidian's selection of private investments and if it's similar or different than what you're doing in the public markets?
That's a great point. And it's just because it doesn't get covered in the news a lot, you tend to think that all the companies in the public markets, that's the whole economy. And it's just not the case anymore. And maybe that was the case 10 or 15 years ago. But today, the private market world has developed, and it's just a myriad of diverse companies with really strong investment opportunities. And so when Avidian looks at the client's portfolio, we look at the total portfolio, which includes public markets as a component, and sometimes a meaningful component, depending on the client's goals and needs for liquidity. But private markets are a very important thing to consider for client portfolios. And that doesn't mean we're just looking at venture capital, doesn't mean we're looking at only private equity. We have a very diverse set of investment opportunities in the private space as well. Sometimes it's to produce additional income for our clients. Sometimes it's to generate very strong after-tax returns with very low tax liability. Sometimes it is to shoot for a higher return, higher capital appreciation type target. But we do have strong capabilities and a really diverse set of capabilities in-house.
So there are a lot of large institutions that have a lot of private offerings available.
Right.
What's the difference between a large, say, wirehouse or bank and Avidian's selection of private investments?
So to me, the private markets investing side of the equation it's a relationship business. And if you're at a large institution, you're going to work on the relationships that matter to your institution, which are really just going to be the major shops, right? You can't spend time, because it just doesn't matter that much to you. You can't spend time on a boutique private market sponsor or an investment firm that may invest in just a handful of companies with really strong appreciation potential. But at Avidian, what we've done, this is before I got here and since I've come, we've developed a really solid relationship with some local providers in the private market space so we can get access to some local investment opportunities that really fit well in our clients' goals and objectives. And we're also able to cultivate those relationships to access those deals, sometimes on much better terms than our clients would be able to do on their own.
So Jake, who would be an ideal client for private investments?
So that's an interesting question. The first thing you got to make sure that you're comfortable with is private investments do require a less liquid investment. So you need to be able to put your capital to work for typically a number of years. Now, most of our clients are already in that bucket, and that's why they're doing financial planning. The second side of the equation with private investments is that they're going to typically invest in things that are going to be diversifying to the overall portfolio. So clients that have a desire to reduce the overall risk of their portfolio, they're typically a good fit for private investments. Clients that have a need to increase the return potential might also benefit from those private investment opportunities.
Jake, outside of just the private investing, when you look at the totality of the investment options that you and the investment team have in conjunction with the financial planning team, who would you say is an ideal client for Avidian?
So when I came here, I really had to think about, what am I good at and what I like doing? And I've always thought of myself as a problem solver. So the first thing I think about is where the ideal client is somebody that has financial problems they're trying to solve. Typically that means a little bit of a complex situation where you can't solve for that problem just with a basket of ETFs, a model portfolio, a fund of funds. There's something additional that you need, whether it's through additional financial planning or financial guidance or a customized plan from the investments team. That's typically where we do really well. And the other area where we really excel at is when our clients value independent investment advice that's not influenced or outsourced to third-party providers. Both of those situations are areas where when Avidian gets a chance, we do really well with those clients.
Jake, you're relatively new to Avidian. We searched for a long time for a CIO, and I'd just like to say you're a perfect fit for both the firm and the types of clients that we service. Thank you for stopping by and chatting with us today.
Thanks, Jim. It was my pleasure.